Welcome to 7 Minutes from Central Europe, a program brought to you by the Central European Office of American Jewish Committee. Today I have the great pleasure to welcome Mr. Radosław Sikorski, a member of the European Parliament and Poland's former Defense and Foreign Minister. It's an honor to have you, Mr. Sikorski.
Hello. Glad to be with you.
Thank you for joining me. And I'd like to start as we exchange emails. This conversation would basically focus on Iran's role in the Russian aggression against Ukraine. So now we have Iranian weapons being used by the Russian army. We know that there is a number of Ukrainian drones operated on the ground in Ukraine against the Ukrainian civilian population and against critical infrastructure. Do you think that changes, or that should change in a way, Poland's position vis-a-vis the conflict, knowing that there is a major actor that has, if you look at it from a certain perspective, it has joined the conflict?
Well, Iran is a theocracy, yet it collaborates with communist China and now kleptocratic Russia. I think this is a prime example of these autocracies creating a kind of axis, helping one another. Iran sells its oil surreptitiously. Now it helps Russia with the drones. There is talk of ballistic missiles as well. There is talk of Iran being rewarded with aircraft from Russia. And this is something that Poland is against. You know, we are the country of Lech Wałęsa, of solidarity. We are an icon of successful democratic and free market transformation. Poland's position should be to be the linchpin of the democratic West. And so Iran represents everything that is inimical to that, particularly now when there is a wave of repression against the women of Iran. And I'm told it's underreported just how harsh the repressions are. So I was very surprised that the president of Poland rang Mullah Raisi, who is now president of Iran. This is the hardest of the hardliners, a man personally responsible for giving the order for the execution of thousands of dissidents since the 1980s. And I accept the explanation that this was done at the request of the Ukrainians, but I still think it was doubtful, because I don't think the Iranians are going to stop just because the president of Poland asks them.
So what would you recommend as this different kind of approach, and not only to Poland, but also more broadly to other EU members and to Brussels itself? What should their reaction be to Iran's presence in Ukraine in the long run, but also in more generally to Iran's destabilizing actions in Europe, specifically in this part of Europe?
The reason why 30% of Ukraine's energy infrastructure is out of action is because these Iranian drones, some of them have reached their targets. I mean, it's also a humiliation for Russia. We thought Russia had a first-class military and a first-class arms industry, and yet it's having to go cup in hand to Iran and North Korea. But it should make everyone realize what kind of regime we are dealing with. And I hope we communicate to Iran that if they persist, if they escalate, we will regard these drones and the missiles as a threat to our de facto ally, Ukraine. And I've advocated it already. We should find ways to intercept the deliveries. I mean, the drones and the missiles are sent whether by ship or more likely by air. And Iran is joining Russia's aggression. And a war aggression is a crime in international law. So this is adding to a long list of Iranian crimes against the international order.
One last question about Russia-Iran relations going forward. How do you see these relations in the next 12, 24 months?
Well, look, until Putin invaded Ukraine, he had a partnership with China in which he was clearly a junior partner. So Russia was seen as a kind of smaller China. But with this war and with this collaboration with Iran, Russia is actually becoming a big Iran, a pretty primitive rogue state with, well, in Russia's case, with nukes. In Iran's case, with an ambition to get nukes. Mm-hmm. And Putin is now destroying his army. He will be unable to build a 21st century army because we will no longer sell them the chips and other advanced technologies that you need to do that. I think he's degrading his country. But by making Russia a rogue state, he has unfortunately put himself in a position of dependency on other autocracies and other rogue states. That is not a good thing for Russia, I think. It's an act of desperation. It means that Putin has put his interest of clinging to power at all costs ahead of the interest of his country.
Thank you so much, Minister Sikorski. Thank you for sharing with us your perspective from your vantage point as a member of the European Parliament. Thank you to our listeners. Please join us in 2 weeks.